Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother Asarimhotep with the Madhu Mandela Institute for the Advancement of Science and Culture. Today is Thursday, September the 10th, and today's conversation is concerning the Cyena-Ntu documentary film about ancient Egyptian and Bantu connections. More in a minute. Again, welcome everyone. Today is a special day. It's special because all of you woke up this morning and you have breath in your body and hopefully some energy to move around and hopefully a roof over your head and food in your tummy and that your family is healthy and all of that good stuff. So I appreciate everyone for listening. Those of you who, of course, are listening live, and then those of you who will catch the archive. Hold on. I'm looking at the comments. It says, Brother Asar, I hope this will be replayed on YouTube. It's 1 a.m. here in London. I got to sleep, but also got to catch this info. I feel you. I'm gonna try to do some earlier shows just for my peoples in London, and further, who we had these large time differences. But yeah, this is going to be, open, so you can come back and catch the archive, once it's this show is done. So I appreciate you staying up, to at least catch this beginning, and hope to get more of your feedback once you have settled down, or gotten some rest, woken up, and had an opportunity to view the entirety of this particular show. And so for those of you who have been on my various social media platforms or have gotten word via my newsletter, I am beginning a process of getting a documentary film done. And so this has been planned in my head and for, a good number of years now. And, we'll get into kind of the history of how, all of this was coming about. But, we are at the very, very beginnings, of this process in terms of completing a documentary film. And so, some years ago, I had done a documentary film, or at least I had shot portions of it, but due to, lack of funds and things of this nature, we never completed. It was called Poetries and Grassroots. And, this is, I was kind of touring the country and just kind of documenting as I went, my journey on the, the poetry scene, and was interviewing different, poets who were big and doing it around the country at that time. So some of that raw footage is actually on the YouTube channel. So you got to go way back to the beginning of my YouTube channel to kind of catch some of those entries. But, I learned a lot during that process in terms of, organizing in terms of the quality of equipment, the importance of the quality of sound and lighting and all of that. So back in the day, we were just doing it guerrilla style and very raw. And so it wouldn't have been, very good, and probably, would have been dope for like YouTube or something like that. But this, it has afforded me to do a little bit more research and training in some areas. And that is, kind of why I took my time to, really kind of get things organized now. And so we're beginning this process, as we speak. So shout out to Robert Rand. Peace to you, brother. And then we saw earlier from Remember Nuke Poo Nuke. I am that I am in the Meta Nature, and Althea Lasha, if I said that correctly, or Lasha. I don't know if you can give me the phonetics of that, and so I can not murder your name. Thank you, for joining the program, and thanks to Craig, Heru, Ott, and Moore for catching, the live program. And so hold on, let me make sure. And awesome, let me see. Yep, that's right. And let me go to, you got to make sure that everything is happening. I'm running a little late, so normally I have all of this stuff together. But just want to make sure that everything is coming up on YouTube as well as on Facebook. So I'm gonna just do kind of just like a brief presentation and kind of show you all where we're at with this and give you some ideas. And peace to David Briggs for joining us via Facebook. And let me see. He says, I'm on my computer now. That's Brother Robert Rand. Thank you. Let me pull up this document real quick so that we can get it in. And let me see, what was that? Let me see, reclaiming. I'm sorry, y'all. Just hold on one sec. Looking for a particular document that I can't find. There we go. Again, I'm not used to running a little late, even though I started the show, frankly, on time. And peace to Jehuti Ma'at. Thank you for joining us. And so let me share my screen. Gideon Appleseed, peace. Geechee in the house, South Carolina in the building. And we will get this mug started in a sec. Sorry for the delay, peoples. This program is taking its sweet time. There we go. There we go. So I wonder if the PDS will work with the remote. What do you call them, Jones? Pointers or whatnot. But okay. No more delay. No more delay. So let me share the screen. I'm going to do the entire screen share. Boom. We'll do it like that. And boom. I'm going to make sure that I can see everything on Facebook and on YouTube. Everything looks good in the building. And so the presentation of what I want to talk about today again is the Cyena-Ntu film, subtitled "A Preliminary Outline." And let me see. Nope, doesn't work that way. Oh well. You have all these gadgets I can't use. I guess I can only use it on PowerPoints. So I want to kind of go through the history and the inspiration for a lot of what I'm doing here, and especially how it leads to the actual documentary film. So for many of you, you may know that I am a big, I don't know if you can say, fan of the works of Dr. Kimbwadende Kia-Bonseki Fukiao, who passed in November 29, or I should say passed on November 29th, 2013. And he was an African scholar who dealt a lot with politics, African culture, more specifically Bantu, and more precisely Congo Bantu culture. And he's written a number of texts, and there's a lot of his text that hasn't even been published that I'm still trying to get a hold of. And so what you see on the screen here is 3 of his major works: African Cosmology, the Bantu Congo, Self-Healing Power and Therapy, Old Teachings from Africa, as well as Simba Simbi, Hold Up That Which Holds You Up. And in my undergrad years, and more specifically in the year of 2001, I went to a lecture across the street from the University of Houston that was held at TSU, or Texas Southern University. And Asa Hilliard was doing a lecture. And in his lecture, he mentioned something from this text here, which is African Cosmology of the Bantu Congo. And so this book had just came out. So this was kind of like at the beginning of 2001, somewhere around there, that he had this text. And so he was breaking some stuff down from the text here. Now, what Dr. Hilliard was doing at the time was in a different context, or what he was citing specifically from African Cosmology of the Bantu Congo. It was in a different context than what I was seeing when he was showing the slides. And because then I already had, a beginner's knowledge of ancient Egyptian culture and history and things, certain things popped out when he was talking about the Bantu Congo cosmology. And so I was inspired to get this text. And once I got the text, ordered it and had it delivered some weeks later, probably some months later, I began reading it and was very, very much intrigued by what I was reading in this particular text. And what's, it wasn't my first time hearing about Fukiao, because, earlier, and especially in my younger teenage years, I used to be a b-boy. I used to break and all of that. And so, for those of us, who know about breaking, a lot of us also did capoeira, because we would try to transfer some of the moves from capoeira into our dance routines. And so, when you're studying capoeira Angola, for example, you have regional and Angola, the 2 major styles of capoeira. When you're studying the Angola form, which is more ground and it's a lot slower, you do a lot of literature reads regarding the origins of capoeira. And a lot of times, those researchers who were doing an analysis of Capoeira Angola would reference, Foucault. So he's been in, the game, for a number of years. And so this African cosmology of the Bantu Congo is actually the second edition of an earlier text, which was named Book Without Title. And so that came out in the 70s. So this African cosmology of the Bantu Congo has some additional information that the first edition did not have, of course. So, so seeing his name again, I never really got any of his text at that time. Just, I would read certain things and they would cite Fukuyama because he consulted on a lot of stuff in terms of interpreting Congo, signs and symbols and religion and culture. So when I got the book, I started, again, noticing some parallels in terms of thought and in terms of ideas regarding the cosmology between the Bantu Congo and ancient Kemet. And this really started my deep analysis and research on ancient Kemet and Bantu language and culture relations. So it all starts in 2001 with the publication of this text. And so, from there, you're looking at not only Bantu culture, religion, and philosophy, but looking also at other systems and wisdom traditions in Western, Africa, amongst the people of Ghana and Senegal and Mali and Nigeria, et cetera, et cetera. And so, over the years, I was able to accumulate and recognize certain kind of cultural parallels. And so, of course, it warrants the question, well, what is the reasons? What are the causes of these parallels? Is it an accident? Is it, in terms of like chance? Is it just coincidence? Or was it a result of trade or migrations, some kind of interactions between, these various groups? Or was this just independent inventions or retentions, I should say, from an earlier culture, that just happened to be maintained over thousands of years and found similar expression in the various art and traditions? And so having those three hypotheses before me, my research over those years, almost 20 years, now going into 2021, has, revealed a lot and helped me to kind of sort out, what aspects are just coincidence, what aspects are just, the result of trade, and of course, what aspects are the result of inheritance. And so, here's just a map of, saying the general Congo area, and especially Fukuyama. He more so dealt with what was going on here. And so if you ever see me dealing with the work of, for example, Dr. Muba Binge Bololo, he, deals with stuff that is mainly here, up in this area, in terms of the Baluba people in the Chiluba language. And so it's because of Bilolo that I started analyzing the Chiluba language and doing my own comparisons, first studying under him and, finding, some very insightful correlations as a result of, the Chiluba language. So, you usually, if you're kind of familiar with my work, you'll know that when I'm dealing with Bantu, I primarily deal with Chiluba and Kikongo. So, at first I was dealing with Kikongo because of the work of Fukuyama. And then I started dealing with Chiluba as a result of the work of Bilolo. And so, this is just a general map of what that is. So I wish I had time to show how this symbol is manifested in ancient Kemet, but I'm reserving that for a book on Ma'at and the god Ra. So that's a future book. So just be on on the lookout of that in a couple of years. And so, these images I did not make, but some of these correlations I have made in the past dealing with this. So like, the way in which people depict the smiting of enemies, for example. So if you see here, this is the King Narmer palette, who is, of course, slaying his enemies. But pay attention to, of course, the right hand, in the air with the mace, but the left hand holding the hair, and I'm assuming these are, quote unquote Asiatics. And there's clues to that being the case, on the particular Narmer palette. But then you see kind of that same, way of depiction in ancient Benin art. And so you see here the king, his right hand with the weapon of choice. He's not using the mace head, he's using a sword, but the left hand holding the hair of the enemy right here. And, when we look into, other traditions, like what a lot of Egyptologists don't realize is that when you see depicted, a deity in human form, but they have the head of a particular deity, whether there's zoomorphic or, whatever, that it's not really the head of a deity. In reality, this is kind of a depiction of an individual wearing the mask of the deity. And this is something that you commonly see, throughout Africa. And so the Egyptologists interpret this a certain way because they don't understand in general, what it is that they're seeing. And so it is by engaging critically African cultures that you're able to make these types of parallels and to see what it is and who are wearing these masks and why. And where the inspiration from to put for example, an ibis bird head on top of a human body. Why would you do that? Are they just crazy? No, they're just, replicating old practices, in on 2D representations. And so this is out of a group out of Nigeria that you see that. And you see the way in which, for example, the Egyptians, wear certain collars and outfits and things of that nature. You see the same type of collar style amongst the Xhosa. And so like when you're dealing with these Bantu groups like the Zulu, the Isixhosa, and in various groups, they all still retain and wear the same type of, outfits and jewelry and things. And so, what is the correlation? Is this independent? Could they have just imagined this style and everything on their own, or was there some type of relationship that we need to consider here? And so even in the artwork, for example, among the Yoruba, is done in the same way. And so, this is artwork from like the 15th, 16th century and things of this nature. There's no Egyptology at this time. So what you see on the right hand side here is a particular king and his wife sitting on a throne. And then, you'll know that there's a common style to have the children or whatnot or servants in some instances in this very small form, even sometimes lesser wives, depicted near the throne and the seat. And you see the same type of style in their own unique way amongst the Yoruba, the same type of thing. And so, like, I really encourage a lot of you, if you're trying to study and make these types of parallels, really pay attention. Get those big art books. I wish I had one around. They're in the garage somewhere. Like big art books. The big coffee table type books. If you get those type of books, really study them and look at the artwork and see what is being conveyed. You'll see commonalities, across the continent of Africa with these particular type of art styles. And so then you got to ask these questions. What is the inspiration of these ancient traditions? And who were these people? Again, is it coincidence? Is it due to migrations and interactions between different populations, and or is this the result of culture, philosophy, etc., inherited from a common ancestor as the descendants spread into different directions over time? So these are the kinds of things we ask. And so y'all have seen this before from me in terms of the god Bes, and then you go over here amongst the Yoruba and you see this, representation here of a child of Obatala from Ile-Ife, 1000 to 1500 AD. And so you see these type of pygmy figures, the god Bes here with the skull necklace with the mouth open and tongue out, and with these big kind of chubby cheeks and things of the nature. And then you see the same thing over here in Nigeria. Now, is it coincidence? Like, you have to ask these questions. How many similarities and exactitudes are allowed in the range of coincidence? In other words, at what points is a coincidence no longer a coincidence, and there's a pattern? And these are the kinds of things I have been, asking over the years. Like, people think that the false beard, for example, is strictly an ancient Egyptian thing. That is not the case. You find the false beards in West Africa, and especially in places like Ghana, Mali, and the Coast of Ivory, or the Ivory Coast. And so you see the artwork here in the same fashion, just done in a West African style fashion. So again, what is the inspiration behind these old artworks? And so, at some point you gotta, ask these questions in terms of, what we see. And so, it is those things, and especially with certain representations in film, that kind of inspired me to look at presenting this stuff in film, in two forms: one in a documentary, and then two later on in an actual epic. And we'll talk about that in another time. And so, this is me in Egypt. For some reason, when you go to Egypt, you got to do the arms crossed over the chest pose, and continuing in that fashion, we see these same type of representations elsewhere in Africa. And so, for example, this is a statuette, is a tomb image from the Congo, for a king that lived at this particular time. You can find this in Robert Farris Thompson's, You can find details about this in Robert Farris Thompson's 4 Moments of the Sun text. And so here is this same position in Mali, in Niger, and this is from the 12th to the 14th century. This has to deal with this post has to deal with lamentations, sorrow as a result of death. And I discussed this in my presentation, on my Patreon page for the Wakanda pose. And so you find this again in Congo amongst Bantu speakers, and even as far west as Mali. So it is correlations like this, and of course in linguistics, for people who know me, that forced me to gather my notes and to organize them in a way and to write text. And so that is the inspiration for the Alludia series. And, the latest one being Alludia Volume 2. And so you have seen me promote this on my page for, all of this year. It came out this year in January. So, now, so I've had, with the Alludia Volume 1, that was kind of an older era of my research and research techniques. But even with the beginning of the conception of Alludia Volume 2, I always intended for me writing the text and completing the text, and then going and turning aspects of the text into a documentary film. So Alludia Volume 2 is actually step 1 in this, production fashion. So I wanted to have the text and wanted to have the research in place, because that serves, kind of like a script. So it's almost like when, there's a novel, like what's a good novel that, became film? So like Harry Potter, for example. So, Harry Potter was a series of novels, and then it was made into a film. And so essentially this is the case here. And so, again, it's Alludia Volume 2, Cyena-Ntu, Religion and Philosophy. So the Cyena-Ntu, for those who have the text, understands that this is my renaming of Theophilo Benga's Negro Egyptian language family. And so I wanted to make the essential scholastic arguments first, so that when I'm showing them on the screen, people have a reference to what they're seeing on the big screen. And that is essentially, kind of the crux and the inspiration for that. So one of the major thrusts of the Alludia text is to demonstrate that ancient Egyptian society, its culture and philosophy and even language, was Bantu. And I've been in many, many debates over these 20 years, with various scholars and non-scholars, arguing this point on the relationship between Bantu speakers and the ancient Egyptians, and dare to make the argument that the Egyptian culture, the fundamentals of the Egyptian culture and language, and many of the expressions that you see, has its origins in Proto-Bantu language and culture, philosophy and religion. And so the Alludia Volume 2 is me making that argument. And then, you see me producing, the evidence in that. And so now you get to see it visually. And so, as I've stated before, Alludia is is a Chiluba Bantu word meaning to make, to provide, to retrace one step, to refer to the place of origin, to restore. This is cognate with the ancient Egyptian word rouge, which means to strengthen, maintain, perpetuate, flourish, be prosperous, success, enduring, permanent, sturdy, steadfast, remain firm, firmness, consistency, be strong, prevail over, competence, ability. And with the causative prefix, it means to make secure, to set right, to provide, fulfill a contract, to restore, to repair, to make new again, to make, grow, and flourish. And so the objective of the Alludia series is really to go back and re-examine the fundamental characteristics of ancient Egyptian culture, language, philosophy, etc., and utilize the African languages and cultures to reinterpret, to make more accurate the interpretations of these ancient Egyptian the ancient Egyptian phenomena in terms of language and culture and things of that nature. So the act of doing that is what we call Alludia or rouge in the ancient Egyptian. It's to go back, to retrace the steps and to restore that which had been damaged, and so that we can get some better insight not only into ancient Egyptian culture, philosophy, religion, cosmology, etc., but to demonstrate the cultural unit, to continue that research process, that research project started by Cheikh-Anta Diop, who essentially argued for, matter of fact, we can even go further back, actually to Du Bois, and showing the cultural unity amongst the majority of African people and trying to explain those commonalities, in a very systematic and scientific way. And so, I've done that in terms of linguistics. I've done that in terms of art and culture and things of that nature. And again, what we want to do is now to translate that into film. And so I want to do this very, very big to compete with the documentary films that are out there with a lot of misinformation. And I'm not going to say no names in terms of these films, but y'all are familiar with some of these films. And, because they've been getting support from the conscious community and beyond, they've been able to improve the quality of the presentations, but it doesn't necessarily translate into an increased quality of information. And so I wanted to do something where the quality of the information was just as high or higher than the or equal to the quality of the actual film in terms of colors, in terms of sound quality, in terms of the imagery, in terms of the storytelling, the connections, and everything to that nature. And so again, learning from my first run at trying to do a documentary, I understand what the stakes are and why certain things, are important in the process. And so this is one of the reasons for, saying the film. So these are just some details about the film, as conceived at this moment. Again, the film is planned to be about 2 hours long. And as I stated earlier, it's the visualization of the content of Alludia Volume 2 and other research that I have not done yet. That I've done, but I haven't published yet. So Alludia Volume 2, it's a 555-page book. 8.5 by 11 is very thick and, with a lot of information. So of course, I'm not going to be able to put all of that in the film. But the major aspects of the film that, that are relatable in living in modern traditional Africa, will be shown and the connections will be made. So my intent is that this is the first in the series of Cyena-Ntu films. And so the first one will deal with kind of the Bantu foundations and the arguments for that and the origins of ancient Egyptian civilization and their relationship again to Bantu speakers proper. And then I'll go into explaining the history and the context of Cyena-Ntu and what we mean by the Ntu family. That's what Cyena means. It just means belonging to a family of, so it's belonging to the Ntu family. And then who and what groups belong to this Ntu family. And so we'll be talking about the Sumerians. We'll be talking about the ancient Egyptians. We'll be talking about the Bakongo. We'll be talking about the Amazulu. We'll be talking about certain East African traditions in Uganda and Kenya, etc. And so that's what we'll be dealing with in the first. So we'll be starting Great Lakes, going up, and then we're going to deal with in part 2 West Africa. So then we're going to be getting to Nigeria, Benin, Ghana, and Senegal, and even places like Mali and Burkina Faso. So all of those West African traditions is slated for, part 2. So, keep that in mind. And so the desired filming locations, we want to film in Egypt, Congo, South Africa, Kenya, and France for the first film. And, we also have in terms of desired equipment. So it's certain editing machines, monitors, cameras, and supporting equipment, etc. And so again, we want to make something that is of high quality, stuff. I don't know if y'all seen like a documentary called like The Corporation. I think that film was done very well. And, in terms of the cinematography, but I wanted to have even kind of a movie feel, not like a documentary. Like it has some grit, it has some, and this is more so the style and the photographer in me who wants to see this kind of done. So if, depending on how much we can raise, we want to be able to have some animation and some live actors. And so my goal is to raise enough that we can even have short parts where, because there's not many live films that have people who actually look like ancient Egyptians from that area to, do and replay certain scenes that they have in the documentary or the film. Everybody's always these kind of whitewashed Arabs, and the like. And so I want this film to be the first film to actually depict the ancient Egyptians, how they were. And so, kind of keep this in mind. And also what I plan to do is to make little mini documentaries, 10, 15-minute documentaries using a lot of the kind of the unused or B-roll footage, of the film. So there's certain shots and things that we know that we're going to use for the main film, but there's other aspects of it that we won't use, but would be good in a different context. And so, as we're shooting the film and editing the film, that which we know we're not going to use, we have a little other idea in mind, we'll use that footage and those interviews and create like a little mini documentary and make them, free and available on YouTube or, any other, film platform online, including the website. So, and also the intent is to create a guidebook and a study guide for the film. So when the film is released, simultaneously kind of a study book, because we want this to be shown, at colleges and high schools, and for, to have those type of debates. So, uh, Alludia Volume 2 is thick. It's a scholarly thing. And, I understand that everybody's not going to read that. And so, a guidebook, a study guidebook, something that's a little more simpler and thinner, to accompany the film itself and how it is outlined. This is, what we, intend to do. And so that brings me on to the fundraising, say, aspect of this. And so, I have created a Patreon page. And for those that know, Patreon is a way for, content creators to get direct support from, the people who, engage and consume their content. And so, this is one avenue that I'm using to help to raise funds, for the film. And so there's the Patreon. So if you don't know how Patreon works, people pledge to support you at different levels, and they are able to give a donation, automatically monthly, which I think they take out of, say, in your account at the first of the month, at the beginning of the month. And this allows the content creator to raise funds for their projects, or to support, their YouTube channels, or whatever, films and whatever it is that they got going on. And so, this is one of the main things that I will have to raise funds for the film. Now, there's also going to be a website created for Cyena-Ntu, which I'm working on, currently. And that will also, have its own kind of Indiegogo aspect to it. So people can, if you don't want to go through Patreon and support that way, you can, do a one-time donation and things of that nature on the website. You can currently do that on my website on asarimhotep.com. It's on the front page. You'll see, it'll say upcoming documentary film, donation. So you can make a donation there. But so you'll have 3 ways in which you can support. And then I'll also am working on having, merchandise that you can, say, and purchase and support, so that you get something immediately. And so, and we'll get to the different levels and stuff to that of Patreon. So what would the funding go towards? So the funding would go towards a variety of different things. So equipment rentals, insurance, travel, etc. We're also going to do some training and consulting. So those of us who will be directly involved with the film, we're going to go through some training, and then, if we have to pay certain consultants for certain things, it will go to the consultation fees for those who are giving us that good insight. And as a result of that training and consultation, we also in turn are going to be training and teaching some teenagers filmography, and they'll have an internship dealing with certain aspects of the project. So depending upon, how much we're able to raise and things of that nature. So, I want to be able to, have another generation of very educated and conscious, well-researched individuals who will be able to tell our stories in very creative and unique ways. And so the only way that we could do that is if we directly train them. So this is also an aspect of this particular movement or whatnot. And so, of course, for marketing and stock footage, so not everything you can, you can't shoot everything. And sometimes it's cheaper just to buy stock footage for certain things. Like if I need to get an aerial shot, saying of Egypt, I know we have what are the drones now that could do certain things, but I'm not sure what the rules are in Egypt or whatnot. But it'd be definitely cheaper, cheaper to do some stock footage of that versus getting a helicopter rental and circling, a particular area. So, stock footage, costs. So you have to get the licensing for it. And then there's location cost. So, especially when you go to Egypt, you just can't film there. There's certain areas where you can film, but like, I don't know if y'all can see my camera here. When I went to Egypt with this in 2015, if I stuck this microphone on the top of here to make sure that I got good audio and stuff like this, they would tell me I can't shoot. I would have to get a permit, because now it's looking like I'm doing a production. So just like if you was trying to film in New York or if you're trying to film in LA, you have to get certain permits and licenses to do that kind of stuff. So if we're going to film in Egypt, part of the cost is the actual licensing and getting permission to shoot in certain tombs and things of that nature. So that's all a part of the cost is. And so just general expenses when filming overseas, like hotel and food and all of that other kind of stuff. So, and then of course paying the crew and the interns. So some stuff the interns will do will, be free. And then we'll have certain projects for them where they will definitely get paid for it. So we don't believe in exploiting, people like that. And then of course, legal, you're going to have to pay a lawyer and stuff like that, to make sure that everything is on the up and up in terms of the thing. So, what's the estimated cost of the film? And so right now I'm just going by the general numbers. So for those who are not familiar with, if you're doing a documentary film, how much is, that you should expect to, how much would they expect to come out of pocket for this film, for your documentary film? The general rule is that it is $1,000 per finished minute of footage. So for example, if you have a 60-minute documentary film, by that number, it's going to cost you $60,000 to produce it. And so remember what I said earlier, that we plan to do a 2-hour film. So we're looking at $120,000 for the film. And, this should more than enough, allow us to do everything that we need to do, for the film. And depending upon, how high quality, and certain things that you want, especially when you're getting actors and all of that kind of stuff, it can range then from 2,000 to 10,000 per finished minute in terms of cost. So you can imagine how, much that would be when doing that type of stuff. So, we're just going to go off the average minimal cost and say that it should cost us, if we get everything and, and be able to do and travel and do everything that we want, and we have the ideal, it will be $120,000. And so the minimum that we're trying to get, however, if we can't get the 120,000 in a reasonable time frame, is to be able to see what we can do if we can raise at least $80,000 for, saying the total project. So it's ranging in there. Our ideal is 120,000. And so there's right now, this is kind of a soft launch. And so this is our first leg in funding. So we've set a goal simply for $3,500. And so this will allow us to begin the groundwork for the next major push of funding. And so what we want to do is to get certain equipment, get certain licenses and things of this nature, to set everything up. We don't have to pay a web developer because I'm a web developer for that, but there's certain other aspects of it we would have to pay for. But in this process, what I want to do is to create a proof of concept. So before I start asking for, a full $120,000, I want to show that this is in fact in production, and this is what we're doing, and this is the quality, of what to expect. So, this first 3,500 will allow us to do just that. And so, if we can raise this by the end of the year, start some other shooting or whatnot in January, kind of February, then by March, start working on the trailer and things, and then you'll see. And so we'll be using that, and then we'll be recording a more formal, kind of, how they do those Indiegogo type, presentations for the funding of the film, and to really kind of outline and do everything in that fashion. So, like I did a, just analysis, like if we can get 60 people to donate $60, our initial goal would have been met, so if you divide 60 into 3,500, it actually comes out to like 58.333333333. So we just rounded up to 60. So, then that would allow us, to meet our goals. And so, with the Patreon, again, it's per month. On the third month, for those who are in the upper tiers, and I'll show you what that means a little later, you'll get certain gifts. And I'm working on, for people who are donating, what kind of gifts. And I'm waiting because I'm doing some research, because I want to also have people to be able to do an investment. But I don't understand all the legal aspects of that yet. So I'm not asking for investment in the same way that what I mean is where there's an expectation of a return on your financial investment. So that's a whole different legal beast. And so I want to make sure that, so I don't be in nobody's scamming conversations, that everything is right and exact. But that's in, the future. So, speaking of that, I'm again trying to set this up. I'm gonna be all throughout the year is, I'm gonna be talking about donations. But of course, I'm not going to be in the Dr. Umar Johnson School. So this will not take 10 years. Well, hopefully it would not take 10 years to do, but this is a lot easier than trying to build a school. So no, I will not be doing the methods that we see of our good brother, here. So, with that said, I think this is pretty much the end of this presentation. So hopefully y'all have some insight into what it is that I'm doing here, and I appreciate everyone for listening to that. And so what I want to do, I'm gonna reshare my screen and kind of show y'all where. So share screen. Let's go to Chrome tab, and let's go to Patreon. So let me make sure that it's showing up on the screen here. So if those of you who are not familiar With Patreon, this is, my page. So the address is simply patreon.com/asarimhotep. And so there are different levels of support. And so there's a $5 level, there's a $12 level, there's a $25 level, and then there's a $30 level. There will be larger levels in the future, but I want to make sure that some things are right and exact before I ask for those larger amounts. But each level is called a different variation of the same word. So at the Kemet level, it's $5. At the Congo level, it's 12. At the Chicom level, it's 25. At the Bukanda level, it is 30. And so again, if you decide to subscribe to the Patreon, then this is what is taken out per month. And again, of course, this is Patreon. They ain't doing this for free. They take a small saying amount from each one, from every donation, but that's fine, that's expected. And so you'll get to see what your membership allows. I mean, what you get with your membership. And so those who are subscribed to the Cyena-Ntu film Patreon, the asarimhotep Patreon page, you will get early access to certain interviews that I do on YouTube. So y'all know, like I'm doing right now, it's a live, but some of my interviews and things of that nature will not be live. They will be pre-recorded and they will be uploaded, but they will be uploaded for those who are Patreon members. And some of them come with certain types of kind of exclusive gifts as a thank you for subscribing and supporting the cause, like with t-shirts, a handbag, or stickers. And another thing that I'm working on is having something external to Patreon to be able to give as well to those who support in any other kind of way. And so right now I have six Patreon members who have subscribed already. And so I thank each and every one of y'all. If you're listening live or through the archive, I think I've sent even an email to those who have. The beginning here kind of let what is going on, kind of just what I explained, and then you'll get to see some content. So like if you're not a subscriber, some of this content you'll see here, it'll ask you to join because it's not unlocked. But because of course I'm the creator, everything's unlocked. So like right now, one of those presentations that are hidden from the public is the Wakanda Forever, a Bantu perspective on the famous African pose. So I break down the Wakanda pose, saying here, and then here's a recent interview that I just did like a week or so ago with Dr. Shamarka Keita, and he's talking about race and a social construct. And so I'm getting ready to do another interview with a professor out of South Africa, and this will be put on the Patreon, et cetera, et cetera. And just some other content that you'll see in the back here that I won't necessarily publish in the public. Eventually many of these videos will be released to the public, but the supporters of Patreon, etc., they get early access to these shows. And so as times goes on, I'll also be including certain exclusive that that won't be released to the public, only to the people in the you'll in future shows you'll see me giving shout outs to those Patreon supporters by name and things of that nature. So just letting you know that the page is up and I'm continually adding content, so stuff will fill up in the coming weeks. And so that's that as far as that. So I'm gonna stop sharing that page, and then I'm going to reshare again my page. So this is my page. This is the asarimhotep page. So there'll be some content and stuff shared here, and I'm working on reduplicating the Patreon type of feature on my own website. So you'll, for those who don't want to go through Patreon but want to go through me directly, the same type of features will happen on my website. And so you'll see the same thing, and so I'm working on that as we speak. But there'll be certain content on the website that will only be accessible to those who subscribe here. So all of these funds, I'm just finding many different ways to get access so that it's easier for you, depending upon your situation, to support this movement. And and then again, for those who just want to make one-time donations, just every now and then or something like that, you can do that on the home page. So you'll see this section on the home page that says upcoming documentary film on Egyptian and Bantu connections. These are kind of prefab donations, 25, 50, 100, but you can add your own in this little here. So it could be $5, it could be $1,000, it could be whatever, $10. You can donate, and it won't be a repeat. It's just a one-time saying donation. So I'm trying my best to make a list of everyone who has donated, because I'm gonna put of course I'm gonna be shouting you out in my presentations like this, and conversations like this, but also want to include it in the film. So just like when there was a fundraiser to to get access to certain research material that ended up in Alludia Volume 2. If you read the beginning of Alludia Volume 2, you'll see a list of the people who donated. So they'll be part of the film in terms of the credits, saying at the end. And so so keep that in mind. So don't know what else to say at this point. So I will be keeping you all updated. So your support would be very much appreciated, and hopefully everything that I said makes sense. So if you have any questions or comments, I'm paying attention now to the comments, and the I'll try to answer your question. So I'll just start from the bottom here. Hassan says, will the on and off donations be a Patreon also? How should I say? With Patreon, you can cancel anytime. So if you just wanted to, go and do 2 months, then you can just give your particular donation for 2 months and then quit. So you're not it's not a contract that you submit. So but the Patreon, to my understanding, does not have a feature where you can make a one-time donation and things of that nature. So which is one of the reasons why I have that feature on my website itself. And so remember, when my website is my website, and so it has its own dynamic and things of that nature, but I'm creating a Cyena-Ntu film website itself. So, a lot of this stuff, these kind of features will be present on there. So you can do one-time donations or recurring donations on that website as well. So I hope that answers your question. Let me see. Exactly. Yes. So I mentioned it on the website as well. And so, if you're on my website, hopefully you sign up for the newsletter. And so I send the newsletter. uh, um, you would have gotten a newsletter just like yesterday or the day before, I think. Yeah, it was like yesterday. So, check your emails, but a lot of what I said in the email is what you're seeing now. So if you're listening live now, then, that's what's in the email itself. Monica Lamb says to ask for sponsorship. I will. That's part of the fundraising process. And Robert Rand says he's definitely donating via Patreon. I appreciate it. Thank you. And one thing I should explain again with the Patreon, the way that they do it, like the donation with the donations, with the gifts. So there's certain gifts that we can create to give to the Patreon members. But those only happen when you have donated for 3 months at that level in a row. So you wouldn't get it until after the third month. So say that you right now tonight, pledge to, to donate or whatnot. So September, October, November, whatever gifts that is on your, how should I say, your level, then that wouldn't come until after that third month. So keep that in mind for those who are listening. And so remember, Nuke Punuk says 120,000 divided by 2,000 subscribers equals $60. Let's do it. Yeah. So I'm trying to, and this is another one of the reasons why I'm trying to get like people who are subscribed to me, via YouTube or, Facebook or Instagram to come to my website and register and join the newsletter, because it allows me to communicate with everybody. Because the algorithms don't allow you to communicate with everyone. You'll have to pay, some large amount of money to get your post seen by those individuals. And that again is going to be part of the marketing funds, in the future when we get that together. And so, again, right now we're at the very, very preliminary stages. And so the first leg is the 3,500 goal. And then, we'll be going from there once I get the proof of concept, to the public. 42 Tribe said he would love to volunteer. Would love to have you, good brother. Peace to brother Conan. Again, I know, like, for my people who are out in London, it is very, very late there. It's 9:16 right now on the East Coast, 8:16 Central, and then it's probably like 2-3 in the morning, somewhere like that in London. So I appreciate you, good brother, for listening in and watching in. And you see, yeah, it was what we need, a full breakdown of all the dynasties in Egypt. I don't know if we will do the breakdown of all the dynasties, but that would be a good idea for one of the mini documentaries. And then, so what the inspiration for like the mini documentaries and like the study guide is really the Matrix films. So if you remember the Matrix film, there was the Matrix, then Matrix 2, and then it was the Animatrix. So they had a whole separate thing, a cartoon that was part of the storytelling of the main film. It was just done in a different medium. And then, of course, you had the video game, which had certain footage in the video game that was part and helped to explain the film. But they also had comic books that was part of the film. So the film, the Matrix story was told in various different mediums. And this is exactly what I want to do with this film. And so I don't know if I'm, get to like a comic book or something like that. But if we can do some YouTube videos and then have a small text, in terms of the study guide. Of course, you have Alludia Volume 2 and whatever books that I will be publishing, later. Like, all of that is going to tell the story. And so you get these different mediums that help to put the complete story together. So, because you can only say so much, even in a 2-hour, film. So, still scrolling up, seeing what the comments, if any. And, and peace to everyone. Peace to Amber. Peace to Aziz Falls. Peace to Sister Mika, Jermaine, Brother Jehuti, Brother Chavez. Everything is everything. Sister Rebecca Christian, Gideon, Appleseed, David Briggs. I done shouted out Robert Rand already. And let me scroll back down. Destro 861, peace to you. 42 tries. Sister Monica. And someone pointed out that I'm saying your name wrong. I've been calling you Monica forever. And so if it's Monica, please correct me. Zane Montego, Sam Polk, peace to all of you. Of course, Brother Hassan. And I think that's it in terms of people who have made themselves known in the chat. So thank you all for listening. This is Robert said, can you check to see if I did it correctly? Okay, we'll see. Let me refresh my Patreon page. Is this Patreon or is this from my website? Let me see. Yes, we do got a new Patreon member. And I'm not sharing the screen right now, but I am, it's acting slow for the moment. Let me click on that to see who it is. But I believe so, Brother Robert Rand. I think it's showing someone just signed up, but it's not telling me the name. I got to go to another page. But if that was you, then I think it went through, correctly. So appreciate you, Robert Rand. As a matter of fact, I'll just, well, what name did you go by? Oh, you went to my website. Okay. Well, shout out to Amun Lekin. That's the newest Patreon. And so Sylvia Stewart, Rob Compere, if I said that correct, Safa Rabba Muhammad, Brother Narada Tisdale. Let me see. Adam Bansu and Sunjiata Ata and Zombie. So these are my, Patreons at the moment. So I want to shout out and thank you all, and thank you, Robert, for your donation. And someone else actually made a donation yesterday, and I want to shout her out as well. She made a donation through the website as well. So let me log into my email so that I can give her proper recognition. There is Evin Nafstad, who's made a donation, and the donation from yesterday is Sandra Grosher, if I'm saying that name correctly. So if you're listening, thank you very much, for this. And I'll give a total of, what has been raised. So that will, when the website is up, you'll see, how much has been raised. Or you can, of course, go on, Patreon, because I think it lets you, how much has been raised thus far and how many Patreons. So y'all can keep tabs, so this will be public information. So as far as Robert Rand is concerned, I haven't gotten an email yet, so just let me know if something was taken out, but it could take a minute. So I'll let you know via, Facebook if it went through or not. But I appreciate you and all of your donations. So please like this video, make a comment, but please share this video with individuals on your list, colleagues, friends, and family. And, let's make this happen. And so, filmography is something that I've, been wanting to do for a long time. And, this just complements the research so that we can start telling our own stories, and we do it in a way that is very compelling uh, and visually stimulating. And so we want to have the same type of effect. That's one of the reasons why we flocked to the Black Panther film, because the way that the story was told, it wasn't cheap, it wasn't mediocre. It was top notch, and that's what we want to strive for. And so we can tell different types of stories. So I want to be able to do this in the future in a major way with, of course, bigger and better equipment. But what I have now, you can see in the back is good and accurate, and we'll have to rent some other, equipment so we can start getting side footage and all that other kind of stuff. So thank you all for listening. And, again, share, like, and if you have any questions, y'all can hit me up on my website, asarimhotep.com. And with that said, since there's no other questions, y'all have a blessed night. Oh, and tomorrow, will be another show. And so it will be the Devil's Advocate show. And so we are asking the question, does Mary, Mother of Jesus, have a valid Me Too claim against God of the Bible? And so, we will discuss that. And so it's an open discussion. So if you want to join the panel and have the conversation, I can send you the link. And when the show starts tomorrow, we can address this. So, no matter what your background is, don't be afraid to come on. We just having critical conversation. So that's going to be on tomorrow, Friday, the 11th of September. And then on Tuesday, which I think is the 15th or something like that, we will have Sister Claudette Smith Brown. This will be a live thing, and she is going to help us do genealogy, and not genetics in terms of DNA genealogy, but actual genealogy in terms of tracing our family heritage and like what are the steps involved and what should we be looking for and things of that nature. And so this is someone who has helped me to trace some things back out in New Orleans. So for those who don't know, ground zero for me and my family is New Orleans, Opelousas. And she's out of New Orleans, and this is what she does. And she helps people to help trace their history. And so we know, for especially those of us in the United States, that we can only trace our history so far, but she'll help us kind of map out and outline and tell us what we need to do in general, and the importance of tracing one's family, not only in terms of your personal curiosity, but in terms of heritage and nation building even. So, that's going to be on Tuesday. And again, as I mentioned, on Saturday, I will be doing an interview with Dr. Kwesi Pra, who's an anthropologist, out of South Africa. But this was going to be shown, revealed first and foremost to those who are, Patreon members. So if you want to see that interview, I will upload it that day, and you'll be able to access that. So thank you again very much. Don't forget to visit the Patreon page. It is asarimhotep.com. Excuse me, that's my website, but patreon.com/asarimhotep. And it should actually be in the description. you know, for those who don't know. If it's not there, I'll put it there. But thank you all again. And with that said, it will be a good night for me. So peace and blessings to you all.